Hello again. I am Heather Para, Exhibits and Collections Manager at the Museum of the Coastal Bend. Welcome to part 2 of Archaeology Appreciation with Frank Condron. Frank is an archaeological steward for Jackson County, a member of the Coastal Bend Archaeological Logistics Team, and an MCB volunteer. Before I turn this over to him, though, I do want to remind you all about the Spring Break History on the Go program. In-person visitors can participate in free hands-on activities such as ocean ecology, backyard archaeology, growing plants from seeds, and orienteering. Those same activity themes are also available as History on the Go kits for $5 each or 4 for $15, and please call the museum for more details on that. Right, I'm now going to let Frank get started. Please add your questions to the Q&A feature in the chat, and he will answer them at the end of his program. Thank you so much.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. First thing I would do is get back to the first slide here. This is day 2. I'm going to review day 1. Then we're going to talk about how you do a dig. Then we're going to go into the lab and you're going to see how much stuff goes on in the lab. And I'm going to end up with report writing and publications. So, first thing is we'll review day 1. This is what we talked about. What archaeology is, why we do it or why we shouldn't do it. Some artifact facts. We talked about how they get named and how we date them. Considerations before the dig, and that goes back to that should we or shouldn't we. Then what you do to set up a site and what kind of equipment you need and how you do it. Everything has to go back to a main data. You've got to be able to reference everything because what we're going to do is measure everything to a data. I showed my hand tools and demonstrated some how you use them. We talked about artifacts and how to get involved. Now we'll go to the dig. First bullet. The things that I'm going to talk about here, now I may give dimensions, I may give metrics, terms for how we, for instance, we'll talk about a meter square. The numbers aren't important. What you need to understand is that those things all have to be known in some kind of system. Because again, everything is all about the records we're going to keep. We're going to talk about different ways of screening and how you actually do the digging. The fact is we're not trying to dig up arrowheads and nails. We're trying to find them in situ with the context and the associated materials that are there. And then sacking. Well, when you dig them up, you've got to keep them straight. There's a million ways to make mistakes in archaeology. A lot of things can go wrong. So we do quite a bit of redundancy, and it's important. It helps us straighten things out when we do make a mistake. Yeah, let's go to screening. Whenever you dig, you screen. But there's different ways of doing it, different size screens, and it depends on what you're doing as to what the size of the screen would be. You can screen dry material. You can screen by using water to wash your material. I'll get into that. You can have a shaker type of screen with dry or swing. And I'll talk a little bit about flotation, which is really getting down and doing some fine screening. Next slide. This is one of the water screens. This was at Fort St. Louis in Victoria County. And when we dug a unit, our unit was a meter square, 10 centimeters deep. And we would load that whole unit into a wheelbarrow. Instead of carrying buckets, we loaded a unit into a wheelbarrow. And it was tagged. And the tag stayed in the wheelbarrow. And the tag's right now being dumped into the screen with the material. And there are 2 water hoses there. So he's going to wash the material with 2 water hoses and leave residual material. To do this conveniently, we had a hill. So because all that mud and water's got to go someplace. It goes down the hill. So you can't do this just everywhere. And you also need to have water. We pump water up from Garcias Creek. You take the screen out and you put it out on a rack to dry. And this is stuff that's left. And some of this is roots and twigs and stuff. A good bit of it is bone and ceramics and artifact stuff. And right there is a washer like you play washers with a piece of red tape in it, and that red tape identifies that unit. So I wanted to point that out to you. Okay, so the next slide is, this is LaBelle. Again, we have a place for water to go because they're out in Matagorda Bay. So they could use, the buckets came up from down in the cofferdam and they screen them with water. One thing I wanted to point out here is gloves. When people are screening, they're going to be wearing gloves because there's sharp things that will cut you. Be careful. And also, when you're screening, you're not trying to push stuff through the screen. So you want to move it to get the chaff, so to speak, to fall through, but you don't want to be pushing stuff through that shouldn't go through. This is hand screening, dry, glove. And usually when we hand screen, there's either we have gloves. One of the methods is like this with gloves on. And another one is have a little board and just scrape it back and forth without pushing anything. Oh, you're pushing it sideways, but the waste going through the screen and you're retaining what you want. That's a swinging screen. So you can swing it by hand and shake it by hand. This is flotation. And there's a series of photos here. The first one, whoops. This photo here, we're seeing the results of the screening. So let me start at the beginning. The beginning was, you're setting up. You've got a bucket with nothing in it. You got 2 other screens, one bigger than the other, and you put the bigger one on top. And then you have a strainer or a sieve, and it's got filter paper in it. So what you do, you put water in your bucket and you take a sample from the unit and you pour it into the top screen. And Then you take the sieve with the filter paper in it, and everything that's floating, you scoop off the top of the water. Then you fold that filter paper up. There's the filter paper sitting over there to dry. That gets your pollen and other things that float, some of which will be trash, but you're getting everything when you do flotation. And then your other two screens, you take those out and put them in separate bags. So this all then gets analyzed. See, here's the finished product, and what they're doing is going through, and it's dried, and they're doing what they need to do with it. Okay, we're going to go to excavation techniques. I've said this before, I'll say it again. The object is to record evidence of human existence, not dig up nails and arrowheads. So you're not just, anyway, I'll say it again probably. There's an example of two adjacent units that have been done. They've gone to the bottom of the unit, which was probably 10 centimeters. And in that 10 centimeters, you can see some of these were real close to the top, some of them are close to the bottom. Sometimes when we get to this point, we'll take photographs and we'll draw these in, and I'll show you the forms after a while where you draw them in. And then you take those pedestals and clear the pedestals. And sometimes we find artifacts under artifacts in the pedestals. This is in process, and you can, whoops. There's some pedestals. This is on the bottom right here, and this is in process. Here's what I want to demonstrate. You're trying to find it in situ, so you skive off maybe a quarter of an inch of dirt at a time or something. Because when there's an artifact there and you hit it, you get something like this and you get gentle with it. And again, you're trying to find something in place. And what they're doing is they're scooping the dirt into these little scoops, put it in the bucket gets carried up to the screen and gets screened. What happened?
There you go.
Oh, there it is. Again, here's another one in process. You pedestal the artifacts until the bottom of each level is reached. The pedestal may extend, or the artifact may extend into the next level. And in that case, you have to make a decision. Do you want to leave it there until the whole thing is exposed in the next level, or you make a decision? Because typically when we measure, when we end up measuring where our artifacts are, we measure to the bottom of each artifact. That's just a convention. We measure to the bottom of each artifact for its elevation point. And so if it extends into the next level, we might want to leave it in place until we do the next level. When you get done, you want to have some plumb walls and a flat bottom. We put a storyboard in there that this is the north 350 from our main datum, and it's east 998. In this case, it's meters. Fourth level down, that's the actual elevation, again, to our main datum. And the date. I talked about measuring artifacts. That's what's on the next slide. And I talked about how we use a line level. They're using a line level. And the line level is connected on the left to a datum. You can't see it, it's not in the picture. And there is the little bubble itself. And then it comes over here. I'm going to explain again how you use this because I don't think I did a good job explaining it before. But if your line level is connected to a datum, and let's say it's this, we know this elevation. And if we pull a line level and it matches up, let's say it matches up right here, when the bubble is level. That means that the thing we're measuring is this far below this. So whatever this reading is, and I'm looking at 82, you subtract 82 from what this known datum is, that's what you do. I hope that's clear. And by the way any level works, when the bubble is up, the end of the bubble in the level is, if it's up, that's the high end. So if you want to get it level, you've got to come down to get the bubble in the middle. Okay. So we're measuring elevation in that picture. We're measuring easting in that picture. And the reason I know it's easting, we put the board on the north side. That's just our convention. So we're measuring east. I guess I don't have a northern. Okay, what I want to point out here is this fella, he's doing the recording. Now, here's the forms. Here's what we record. The lot number isn't there yet. We usually put the lot number on in the lab after, but I took this from this is the actual sheet. There's the site. Here's the people that are working on it that day. Here's the date that we started it and finished it, and it's advisable to do it all in one day. It reduces your probability for error. There's the area. North 354, east 998 is the unit we're talking about. We're doing level 5. There's the elevation. 9410 is the bottom elevation. And it says here, centimeters below datum. That means that to get to 9410, we need to read 90 on that stick. That's what that tells us. And we go through here. This is all the material that we found, that we expect to find because we know this place. We dug here before. So we have a list of things we will probably find. Lithic tools, debitage. I don't know if I talked about debitage before, but it's the waste from making stone tools. Debitage, mussel shell, snails, bone, ceramics, metal beads. We're not going to find any of those at this particular spot, but we have found them before. And pebbles. Now you can ask yourself, what do those have in common? Well, I'll tell you what those have in common. Those are all artifacts. They're all evidence of man's habitation. And when I say pebbles, now the pebbles may have washed in, but some pebbles will be extraordinary, and because of what they're made of, but anyway, just looking at the pebbles in the lab will separate those things out. But anyway, that's all stuff that's all associated material with more important things that you would think we were looking for, like lithic tools. Okay, then we did find 3 uniques, and uniques is what we would recognize as a worked piece, something that was a tool. There's a scraper, and there's a gouge, and there is a preformed fragment. And we measured those in, just like you saw us on that previous slide. We measured the northing and easting and elevation of each one of those things. The north and east, we measured to the middle of it, and the elevation, we measured to the bottom. And when I say we measure, I'm going to go back. This unit is identified by this point here. This is whatever it was, 354, 998, north 354, east 998, is that corner. So when we're measuring an artifact in, we're measuring from that corner. If you're measuring east, you can measure anywhere along here, and you're going to get your east. And if you're measuring north, you're going to measure from here, because that's the reference corner. That is the 354, 998. North 354, east 998. Okay, what else? Okay, and then we put down some notes down here. And this one says, usually something about the weather. While removing the pedestal, Bruce found a drill in the next level, left in place for next week. So that's the kind of notes you put in there. You may talk about how the soil is super wet, or that's for notes. And for instance, if you found evidence of rodent holes or tree roots or something, you would record that, because you may find something out of context when you end up analyzing the data from this unit, and those notes might explain it. So this is the other form. There's 2 forms that we use in the field. One is the unit level record, which I just showed you, and then this is an auxiliary sheet, and what this rectangle is, that's the unit. This would be the corner I'm talking about. Everything's measured from the southwest corner. And then where did we find these 3 artifacts? The gouge, the preformed fragment, and whatever the other one was, scraper. And then we actually sketched them in. So we get back to the lab, we got a bucket full of rocks. We'll know which one of these was found where, etc. Plus, we take pictures of it too. We sketch them and we take pictures. And the pictures are really easy to do now that we have digital everything. Lab procedures. Okay. This is the lab that we're at right now, and I'm going to go into some detail, but they're working. And this is an old picture from a lab, but I wanted to show it to you for one reason, because what gets done in the lab is artifacts get washed, they get sorted, they get analyzed, they get measured, they get labeled, and that's all goes into lab records. And then eventually they get digitized. All those records get digitized. And why I wanted to show this old slide is because those are buckets with water in them and toothbrushes. And the artifacts, when they come in, they've come in from the field dirty. And so we wash them in the lab. That's one of the things I wanted to show you about. Right now, we're not doing it that way, but that's the way we used to do it. And that's the way most labs are. anything else I wanted to say? Okay, there's what we saw that slide a while ago. That again, see, that was washed in the field. That's the way we're doing it right now. This is sorting, and this is Fort St. Louis. We're sorting. The stuff comes in a bucket. This is what the sorter does. This stuff right here, whoops. This stuff right here, that's how it comes in. It's just a bunch of stuff. It's all mixed up. And we sort it into, this is bone. This is shell, muscle shell. This is pebbles. That's pebbles. This is rhabdotis, which is a snail that they used to eat. So that's a heck of a lot of snail. And by the way, this is one unit, and that's what your yellow tags are. It's one unit, and the tags that were in the buckets are still with the material in the lab. This is debitage, and that would be fire-cracked rock back there. Fire-cracked rock can happen in nature, but it usually looks different from man-made fire-cracked rock. Because usually fire-cracked rock these are rocks that were in a fire for one reason or another, and they exploded. And I don't see any artifacts here, but we might, if we had artifacts, they'd be on a plate next to it, somewhere here with it. What we have right here is the next thing. I said washing, sorting. This is analyzing. Right here, what they're doing, these three fellows right here, are looking up in the book of stone artifacts of Texas that you can get at MCB's gift shop. It's the Bible. They're looking up, they're trying to identify some points. They're trying to put a name on them. Not all points are nameable, but that's what they're doing. That's the analysis I'm talking about. And then sometimes you analyze other things besides projectile points. But analysis is the next step. And more than one button is too many for me. All right, what we've got here is we've got labeling going on. And there's two things that get labeled. One is the artifact itself. And what we put on the artifact is the site. And you probably, it's not real clear in here, but it's the site number, 41BT141. Put that on there, and we also put the lot number. Because when this stuff comes into the lab, that's when it's given a lot number. And by the way, other archaeology groups somewhere else, they may have a lot number before they even start to hit. But we put the lot number on when the stuff comes into the lab. And so everything gets that lot number. The other thing is this tag that Bill was filling out, and it has got essential information. In this case, it was a surface, so we didn't find it in, see right here, unit, north and east. We just tell a general area where it was found on the surface. If it was measured in a unit like I showed earlier, those numbers would be in there. And they would be to the centimeter. And there's our lot number. There's the date. And the date would have been the date of the dig. That's what it is. It's a uniface clear fork tool. And a clear fork is a gouge. Surface, so there's no level, but that's where the level would go. Then this, 60, and that's grams. Wait a minute, that's millimeters. 60, 41, 15, and then weight of 44 grams. Again, somebody else may do this in inches and pounds, but they're going to do it. The artifacts get measured. Let's see, washing, sorting, analyzing, labeling, measuring. So we've got the vernier caliper here, and by the way, we use plastic. In other words, a cheap caliper. We use plastic, but we use it for a reason, because it won't damage anything. We don't want to be using steel tools. And then a plastic, a little scale. So that's the measuring. I think I can do better not trying to read those. Here's the lab records we keep. The measurements, copy of the field records, and the lot number. This is the lot number. There's the date of the dig. There's the lot number we gave to that unit at that level. So a lot number tells you where it came from. And ever after this, in the museum, in curation, it's always going to be followed by lot number. And this is the lab processing log. Date, area. Oh, no, that's the site, 41 VT 141, the area, and then the unit. And this one is North 353 East 1007. And it's going to have a level down right here. So everything on this page came from that unit. There's the lot number, the level, I guess that's elevation, home, debitage, shell, I can't read it. This is going to be pebbles, fire cracked rock, uniques. That says?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unclear to me. But we got to have uniques on there somewhere. And then there's a place over here for comments. And so basically, you saw on that sorting slide, the stuff in the different fields. Well, all those rhabdotis shells get weighed, or they get measured somehow. And they go on here. So everything that we brought in that was associated with man's past gets measured and put on the lab record. And then there's a separate page just for the uniques. Now that lab page will say that we found 3 uniques at level 5 or something. And then this will give the actual, there's the lot number. And then this is a suffix of the lot number. So for instance, for this lot number right here, 1439 or 1489, I can't tell. But this is number 1, number 2, and number 3 that were found in that unit. And then there's the actual elevation of the artifact. the description of what it is, the length, the width, the thickness, and the weight. This is the stuff where these two forms here are where the research is going to be done. Somebody wants to know anything about this, these are what they're going to come to. And they're going to come to those in digital form. So this is yours truly. I'm doing the digital part. The lab record and the unique record go in here. There's the uniques. It's a whole lot easier for me to read here. But you can see, here's the area, here's the unit, here's the lot number, the provenience. This one was found here, and it's got 0.77 meters, which is 77 centimeters. So we're down to the nearest centimeter on our provenience. A lot of stuff gets found in the lab or in the screen. So we just know for that, all we know about its provenience is the unit. That's all we know. And then elevation, the level, elevation, what it is, and the length, width, thickness, and weight. So a lot easier to read on this slide. And this is the other one. This is the lab. And I'm not going to bore you with going through it, but it's got all that same stuff that we wrote down by hand. And it's easily searchable. And we digitize some other things too. We digitize all the uniques, a picture of them. So we scan them. And so there's a scan. You can see the lap number on them. There's a tag that goes with them. Again, it's not exactly the same tag I showed Bill doing a while ago, but it's the same type of stuff. It tells you the unit and the level and the area and the site. And again, you want to look up something, you can go to the vault where these are kept in storage and look at the individual piece, or you can start by looking at a picture and say, well, that's not the one I remember, or I want to see one. I don't need to see that. That's not what I was thinking of, or I want to go see the actual piece. But this takes a second to find it. Just go by lot number. Another thing we scan is at the end of the day, when we dig a unit, you saw the sketch. There's a sketch of where all the artifacts are in the unit. There's also a photograph taken. And again, they complement each other. That's some redundancy, but they're both helpful things. And you see the arrows pointing to north. And you see the storyboard. Did I talk about the storyboard before? I don't remember, but it's got the same basic stuff. It's going to have the northing and easting. It's going to have the level. It's going to have the elevation and the date. So that goes into the digital database. So we've got the lab form, the unique form, the artifacts themselves scanned, and the units overhead shot. And also there's a whole bunch of maybe oblique views or close-up views of the unique in situ. There's a lot of them, but we have this for every unit, because there might not be any close-ups, there may not be any artifacts shown. Now we're getting to the nitty-gritty of this, where we're getting to what's really important. If you've done some digging and dug up some artifacts, they are nothing without the records. And so I have a couple here that I wanted to show. This is the site where we're digging, and we have written it up. This is in a Texas Historical Commission publication. And it's the one we're working on right now, 141, 41, VT 141. And I just wanted to show you the front page of it to show you that our place is registered. And also, this is another report. Again, this is a big picture, and this was in La Tierra. La Tierra is STAA, South Texas Archaeological Association. It's headquartered in San Antonio, but they put out a publication. They put out a newsletter and a publication. Publication comes out once a year. This was in there, and this is an extensive write-up. And just in this case, we also have a couple of other publications that we ended up with. One of them is, the guy did his master's thesis on it, and I don't have a copy of that here, but it's extensive in that he studied geoarchaeology, so he goes into great detail on the geology of the site. But without the records in the write-ups, you got some rocks that are going to be in a garage sale someday. So, what did we do today? We reviewed the first day's material, what you needed to do a dig. We presented how a dig is conducted, discussed the records we make in the field and in the lab, described laboratory activities, and I'm sure that some people watching this didn't realize that there was a lab or that it was that extensive, but that's the important part. And the write-ups, the records that come out of it, that's the product. End of day 2. I will say, before I ask questions, I'm going to repeat something I did in the first week, and that is how to get involved. If you're interested in this, you have to be mobile. That's about how I'm breathing. But we welcome newcomers. And just get a hold of the Museum of the Coastal Bend. They'll tell you how you can get involved. Also, you can join. There's a couple of organizations. I mentioned STAA, South Texas Archaeological Association. That's a good outfit, and the Texas Archaeological Society, TAS, is a very professional organization that I'm proud to be part of. So if you're just casually interested and you don't really want to dig or work in a lab, you just like to read what's happening in archaeology, join those organizations. I don't know what STAA costs, but I know it's $70 for Texas Archaeological Society, and it is first rate. Before I was ever a member, I was told that, well, just a bunch of pot hunters go there. That's not true at all. It's very professional. Okay, any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
There's a few. Your first one is you discussed the artifacts that are found halfway into a unit. Can you give examples of when you would leave it for the next day and when you would go ahead and extract it on the day you first found it?
Well, you have to, it's an arbitrary decision. And I'll tell you how I make that decision is, how far is it into the next level? And what is it? For instance, if it's part of a harp, or you think, there's a cluster of stones here that go into the next level, you might want to leave those there. So you make a decision based on what it is and how far it's immersed. Or if it's for instance, if it's a lanceolate point and you've already exposed it, you might as well take it out. It's because you're going to measure the bottom of it, but how different is the bottom of something like this thick from bottom of the unit? I mean, but if it were an artifact sticking like this, what most things aren't, you might want to leave it in and take it out the next level. And also, you wouldn't want it to, again, supposing you're digging somewhere where the public has been known to come in and loot or just vandalize or something. You might want to take it out even if it's embedded in the next level. But you take the record, you put the record in the next, you put what you find, the measurements in the next level. And so the dimensions won't change, it's just that when you take it out, it changes. Did I answer that well enough? Thank you.
Yes. Next question is, how is digital technology changing archaeology?
Well, I'm sure makes it a whole lot easier to research if you've got digital records. I mean, that's why I harp on that. And I'm not really crazy about sitting there typing numbers into a computer, but I feel like that is so useful for people who want to do research. It just makes it where so easy to find what bag back in storage has got the answer to what this person's asking, or overall of all we've done. For instance, we had a question. Two types of points that are close in age, but one of them we think is newer than the other. And so we were asked where you have found these two types of points in the same unit or in adjacent units, what is their relative elevation? In other words, do we always find this point A? Do we always find it above point B, or does it go back and forth? Because we're talking about something that's 9,000 years old here, this particular question. 9,000 years old, and there may be only a difference of maybe 100 years between these 2 points. And so you're really cutting to the fine point. We only read to centimeters, but that centimeters sometimes is enough to, anyway. So we quickly went to the records and looked up those points, where they were found and where we found them in the same unit. Here's how far apart they were. Got that answered in about 10 minutes. What was the question? Was that the question?
It was how digital technology is changing.
Okay, that's one thing, is the digital records. Another one is the digital photography. It just makes it so easy to take pictures, and we don't have to go get them developed anywhere. We just bring the camera in and download it. So that's another one. We got digital scale or balance, scale, and you don't have to zero it, it zeroes itself every time. What more digital? They use a digital vernier, the vernier caliper. We have some that aren't digital, but we do have a digital one. I don't know if I've covered them all, but digitization helps.
Yes, it does.
New technology helps. And of course, some people, I've seen them used, instead of using a line level with something like this, they'll have a laser sitting over here that on a level plate that they just put this here and read it. They don't need a string anything. So that's some technology that I've seen. There may be more, but I welcome the technology.
Next question is, what do you learn from the small stuff you collect during flotation?
What do you learn from the small stuff that you collect?
During flotation. Flotation.
Oh, flotation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can the first thing that comes to mind is pollen, because you can see what was growing when, because we know how old the unit is, and you can see what was there. You'll get bones sometimes that'll float that again, same thing, tiny stuff. But we also get bones in the dry. Pollen and seeds are the two things that come immediately to mind.
Last question. When you dig, do you work your meter square in a certain order?
Kind of. So one of the things it's nice to do is to, let's say you've got a row that runs east-west. And let's say maybe it's 4 units wide. You might want to do all those that are in that row before you do one of them in the next row, because you might want to look at that profile on that wall. That wall is going to show you changes in soil, changes in where the artifacts are, changes in the content, like you got maybe mussel shell here, but you're not seeing it over here. But so there's a profile. You learn what a bigger picture looks at like than just one unit. And we pretty much do that. We've been known to go back and or go out ahead with a unit, or of course, where we're digging right now, we pretty much know what we've been digging there so long. We pretty much know what's going to happen and what's in the next level and where we're going to find stuff and where we're not going to find stuff. We pretty much know that. But if you don't know that stuff, or if you're digging in a place where there's been multiple habitations, like for instance in a cave or a cave dwelling or something, where there's all kinds of lenses of what's going on. You have people here, or they'll dig a pit and then they'll throw stuff in there. And so you have to pay real close attention to the profile. So the profile tells you a lot, especially in situations like that. Well, when we first started digging where we are right now, which we call the paleo area, when we first started digging there, we carefully marched we would do a whole row and do a profile, and then do another whole row or a whole column, depending on which direction you're going. If you're going west, you're doing a column because your column runs north-south. Yeah, right now we are doing that semi. But it's because we're so familiar with the site, and the site seems to be so big. It just seems to go on forever. And so we haven't done any profiles in a while, for instance. Anything else? In the back row, you got any questions?
No, I've heard it.
Okay.
Any last words, Frank?
Hello again, and I am still Heather Para, and I want to thank you for coming and listening to Frank Condron tell us a whole lot more about archaeology than we knew before we got here. Stay tuned next month for another live cast from the lab, and also check out our spring break options. Thanks again.
Those were questions.
Thanks, I made them up.